Red Bull have likely decided to keep Perez in their own camp after a staggering deal has been struck between the Mexican driver and the Austrian team, which goes to show that when money talks, we gotta listen. According to a renowned media outlet, Perez has been given the green light to produce merchandise in his home country for 2025, which needs to be approved by Horner, but further hints that his spot is secured for the next year as well. But did the sponsor deal behind Perez's contract prove that Red Bull is not what we believe it is? And if so, did they already shatter the dreams of drivers like Tsunoda, Lawson, and maybe even Colapinto? Sergio Perez's contract with Red Bull is one of the most, if not the most, controversial things in the world of Formula One. And after the latest statement made by Marsa, a renowned media close to the sport, it looks like there is not going to be a change in the drivers' lineup in the senior team, despite them being very open about switching Perez with a younger driver. We've been assured about one thing when it comes to Perez and his tenure with Red Bull: it all comes down to the money. And even the owner of two of the biggest sponsors of Red Bull, Carlos Slim, who stands behind Perez's F1 career, has openly spoken about this. So according to Marsa, the sponsors that are yet unknown have guaranteed to continue paying Red Bull at least 30 million euros in financial support if they were to keep Perez in 2025. Right now, the names of the sponsors are not outwardly known, but the ones that are currently supporting him are Claro, Infinitum and Telcel, which are all parts of Carlos Slim's business. And while they're taking care of the entire salary of Perez, they are currently paying $30 million to Red Bull on top of that. When writing about it, Marsa said, "Those who consider Perez written off will have to wait a little longer, as he has a contract through 2025. Unless something changes at the last minute, which is not impossible at Red Bull, it looks like he is going to honour that contract." What is really strange, though, is that this is the amount of money that Red Bull would lose if they finish third in the Constructors' Championship, which is highly likely considering that Perez has scored fewer points in the last 5 races than Alonso and Hülkenberg as well, 9 times less than his teammate Verstappen, who scored 90 and is tied at the top with Leclerc and Norris. The fact that Red Bull would be third in the Constructors, even if you take away all of the points that Perez has scored this season, is really showing something about whether or not he deserves a seat in Formula One. And that is a situation that we would have to analyse a bit deeper in order to understand whether or not Perez is legitimately deserving of an F1 seat anywhere, let alone one of the best teams on the grid. The only chance that we might see Perez out of Red Bull is if he himself decides to retire, as he did state earlier in the year that he wants to spend more time with his family and less time on the grid, because he is at an age of his career where family matters a bit more than racing. The statement from Carlos Slim regarding the tenure of Perez with the team has sparked controversy in the direction of Red Bull being able to use his money only if Perez is on the team. Furthermore, he went on to say, "We are talking with Red Bull. We are still in talks. It is not definite, but the one we will always intend to continue with is Checo. As far as we can always go with Perez, that's the way, without a doubt. The issue of Checo's contract is independent of the issue of sponsorship for us. It has always been like that since he signed with the team, but if there was no longer the opportunity to continue with the team, we would certainly continue with Checo." Now, Red Bull is in a position that they didn't believe they would find themselves in a couple of years ago, with seniors like Newey and Wheatley leaving the team, as well as the chief of strategy, Courtenay. So obviously they need a lot of finances in order to keep their current employees and to make the car a greater one in the following period, which is hard because Perez himself is the leader in terms of dealing financial blows to his team, as Red Bull had to spend $5.5 million as of September in terms of repairs to the car, rather than working on upgrades that would fix the existing issues of the RB20. However, while the merchandise situation is proving pivotal for Perez's seat in Red Bull, the same can be brought by Colapinto, who comes from Argentina and has a massive fan base from Latin America. This has been recognised by Horner, who has nothing but praise for the young driver for Williams, and the fact that he was seen visiting the motorhome of Williams in Brazil goes to show that there is something brewing in the background that could spell bad news for Perez. The sponsors are the primary ones that will solve the driver's situation in Red Bull, and whether we like it or not, that is the reality of Formula One. If you bring the money to the table, then you're in. If you don't, then you're out. This was one of the primary reasons why it took so long for Red Bull to demote Ricciardo, as it became very obvious that they were wasting the talent of Lawson, who is also a primary candidate to replace Perez, by keeping him as a reserve driver for Racing Bulls. Still, Horner was quite critical of the performance of Perez and did say that there is only so much the team can do in order to justify his poor performance. Yes, money will help him shut some mouths in the upper class of the Austrian team, but when it comes to the on-track performance, Horner doesn't really have an excuse for Perez anymore, as the Mexican driver also received a new chassis in Brazil, only to score 1 point in the sprint race with it and finish outside of the points in the race itself. When talking about Perez's recent struggles, Horner went on to say, "Perez knows Formula One is a results-based business, and inevitably when you're not delivering, then the spotlight is firmly on you. As a team, we need both cars scoring points, and that is the nature of Formula One. We're working with him as hard as we can to try and support him. I think we've done everything that we can to support Checo and will continue to do so, but there comes a point in time that you can only do so much." And what we must keep in mind is that there are drivers out there who are waiting for the opportunity to be promoted to Red Bull's senior team, like Tsunoda, who will have a test at the end of the year with Red Bull's machinery, and Lawson, who managed to finish P9 twice in 3 races, as he started all the way back in P19 in Austin. The competition of being Verstappen's teammate is very fierce, and with Colapinto suddenly joining the chat, it's safe to assume that there will be a lot to think about once 2025 wraps up, as both Tsunoda and Lawson are doing exactly what is being asked of them, delivering top-notch results and proving that they can do the same in Red Bull in order to keep them in the constructors' fight in 2025. When talking about the test of the Japanese driver, Horner said, "Yuki is a member of the junior team, and the test is something that we have discussed with Honda. We gave Yuki a run up the hill at Goodwood earlier in the year. He will test the car again at the tyre test following the conclusion of the season. It's something that's been agreed upon for quite some time. It will be good to give him a run and get the opportunity to work with Red Bull racing engineers and see how he performs in a Red Bull racing car." Be that as it may, Red Bull will have a lot of mouths to shut if they are to keep Perez, because while the Mexican driver has dodged the sacking during the summer break, which was supposed to happen with Ricciardo, there is something that tells us that 2025's dodge will be quite impossible to be realised. Nevertheless, if the sponsor stands behind Perez, and if they offer such a hefty amount of money to Red Bull just to keep the Mexican driver there, it will be interesting to see which way Red Bull would choose: the safe finances or the promotion of talents and drivers, now that even Verstappen's future with the team is insecure. With all this in mind, where do you think Perez will end in 2025? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're interested in Hamilton's latest drama with Mercedes, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.